Welcome to In the Green Room. I'm Kinga.
And I'm Chet.
And this is Martin. Welcome everybody.
It's a big day.
Is it?
It is because we are talking about something so important.
Okay. What are we talking about today, Kinga?
Patience.
Patience.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the Pacers.
I thought we were going to wait to talk about that.
I thought you were going to say the Pacers after that win they had last night. That Pacers win last night was insane.
Patience. You know that saying, patience is a virtue?
Very true. Very true. It is. It's definitely something that I've learned as a coach and in coaching that I needed to have more of. In coaching, we call it speeding up to slow down. Is a lot of people, most people just run through life, go, and they don't really look up despite the trees. And the idea is running through the forest as fast as you can with your eyes shut, and you hit a tree, and then you just step to the left or right, and then you keep running until you hit another tree, and you'll get it through the forest eventually, but it's very painful. Versus if you could take the blindfold off and walk through the forest, it might take you a little bit longer, but it'd be a much better experience.
With enjoyment.
Right. So to me, that's how I envision patience now. And it's patience with myself, it's patience with my loved ones, it's patience with life not doing what I think it should or want to be. And so it's been, it's definitely been a journey for me, because in my younger days, I was not patient. I would say well into my 40s, I really was not a patient person.
And what do you think changed that, Martin?
Coaching. Absolutely. The ladies.
So coaching is what you realize you're not patient, or that's what made you realize you weren't patient?
They helped me open my eyes to the fact that I was operating in a certain way that wasn't really benefiting me. And that I was running and hitting those trees thinking that that's what I was supposed to be doing. That's what everybody else is doing. I should be doing the same thing. And their teachings, and they're very unique in the coaching world. There's not anybody that I've seen that coaches specifically like they do and teaches what they do. But it's really about opening your own eyes to what it is that you really want. And I didn't want to beat my head against the wall. I didn't want to be in constant conflict. I didn't want to be stressed out all the time. I didn't want to be working.
Wait. You didn't want constant conflict, which is sometimes caused by being impatient.
Absolutely. I would say most conflict is caused by being impatient or not having the curiosity and the patience to understand what's happening for the other person. So many arguments in this world are over the semantics of what a word means. And people get into a fight and being impatient because they're not, they go to impatience and anger rather than curiosity and love and interest. Like, all right, well, why does this person think this way? Versus, oh, I can't believe you think that way. Right? It's a shift. And I definitely, in my younger years, was definitely more of that, why don't they think that way? Why aren't they like me? What the hell, right? And now I see, okay, people are different than I do. They have different stories. They have different stories they tell themselves about things that happen, and you have to be really patient and be interested in what they are. So once you understand it, then you can have real communication. And that's what patience brings. It brings a self-awareness. It brings a higher level of communication. But it takes effort. It's not an easy thing. You think it is, but it's not. It takes practice.
Patience is difficult for me because my viewpoint is how time is our most valuable resource.
Yes.
And
yes.
I don't ever get frustrated if somebody else is late, but I'll just try to find something else to do to occupy the time. So I don't take it personally, and I don't take it out on the person, but I definitely have to find something to do in that time. I can't. Well, I'm so bad at just sitting there and waiting. I can't do that. I have to find something to do. I don't know. Maybe that means I have a little bit of ADHD or something. I have to be focusing on something. But
well, I think it's just like anything. It's a habit. I have a habit of doing the same thing of having to be distracted. Well, sometimes now what I'll do is because a lot of times I'll be ready faster than Sherry is. I'll sit and I'll meditate for 15 minutes while she's getting ready. Now, normally I would play a video game or look on some memes or whatever, or I'll read something that is inspirational or important, or one of the books that I'm reading, rather than being distracted like that. So I think
it sounds like you're being focused more than distracted. Like you're focusing in on something and enjoying it. That's what I try to do too.
And the key word is try. I don't always succeed. Yeah. I'm saying this is an intention of mine, and this is the goal of mine, and that's what I'm moving toward it. But I'm also not beating myself up when I don't meet that goal.
Well, because don't you think if you're being impatient, as you're waiting for Sherry, and then you're impatient, and then maybe it'll make you flare up and say something that's not nice.
Absolutely,
it's going to cause a fight.
Absolutely, that happened in my previous marriage for sure. Because my first wife was chronically late to most things.
Wait, I actually wanted to ask you about this. Yeah. When somebody is taking forever to get ready like that, what is like the proper number where it's appropriate to say, "Oh, I'll meet you there"? Or do some people just not okay with that? I think that's a mature thing though. Like I think a healthy couple should be able to say like, oh, like I'll meet you there. Like you're obviously running on a different schedule than me. So.
Yes, if you are both on the same page and you're a strong couple, and
I think that's a bad habit though.
It is a bad habit, but there's also I believe.
Go separately.
Well,
I also believe there's a mental component to being on time and versus being late. Now, this person that I'm talking about was literally chronic. It was something that was happening for her where she could not be on time for things. Business meetings, it didn't matter what it was. We joked that we still joke to this day that when she passes, that the hearse will break down and she'll be late for her own funeral. Right? It's a family thing, but it's definitely something within her, and so it used to frustrate me to all get out, right?
Well, yeah, I know somebody who basically has that same issue. It's chronically late for social things.
And I was military time. Like if you're 5 minutes early, you're late. Like and it used to cause me so much stress and so much agony, and I really suffered because of it. And our relationship suffered because I would get angry. And then I would be like,
in a bad mood.
What the F, or whatever, in a bad mood, driving
this friend
super
I'm talking
fast.
About, like most of her fights with her boyfriends are over that.
Right,
so it's literally,
right, exactly.
It's like a huge thing. So that's why I've been like wanting to just give the advice of just tell them to go and you'll meet them there, because it's like.
Wait, who's this?
I'm not. You're not sharing the details. People.
But it's something.
You probably know somebody who this fits the description of though, because it's a common trait. Yes. It's a common problem.
It is a common problem, and I believe there's something much, much deeper, and I didn't understand it at the time. And if I would have been more compassionate, if I would have been like, okay, hey, I understand that you're having maybe some anxiety or whatever. What if it would be okay if I got you an Uber, and back in the day there was no Uber, but for now. When you're ready, I'll get you an Uber, but I really want to get there now. If you're in a mature relationship, I think, and you recognize that's what's happening, again, it goes to patience. If you can have the patience and be curious about what's going on for that person, because I know a lot of girlfriends that I've had were very self-conscious, and so they would go through outfit after outfit after outfit, and they just don't feel comfortable, and they don't want to be that way. They don't want to have to.
It's like a side effect of
right. Yeah. But if they don't feel right, if they don't look right, they don't want to go out in public. And it's like, it's an energy, like it hurts them. Like it's there, like really strong. And so I didn't understand that when I was younger, and so now I do. And when Sherry's having those, and she's working on it and aware of it and getting much, much better at it, and she's getting better at buying clothes that go together, so she doesn't have that. Like she's working around her own.
And she's lucky to be dating a fellow marijuana enthusiast. So you're down to just roll up a joint and listen to some music when she's taking forever. That's why I've never had an issue with any of my exes or getting ready. I'm good at enjoying the moment and finding something to do.
And to be fair to Sherry, she's 15 minutes late. She's not hours late, right? And there's a big difference there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But yes, it's.
But also,
that's a good question. Okay. At what point does it get to like just being like negligent, where they're like clearly disrespecting your time? I think it's kind of like
not disrespect. That's the thing. Is like that's the story that we tell ourselves.
But if it goes over like an hour, then it's like
again, what if that person had Down syndrome and was struggling with getting their shoes tied, and didn't want to share it with you, right? You would have a different reaction. You wouldn't go in and flip out on that person. You would sit and you would help them. So that's what I'm talking about, is rather than assuming that they're disrespecting your time, which could be true, but my guess is that it's a person who really likes you and cares for you. It's probably more about something that's going on for them.
Yes.
And if you can be curious and find out what's going on for them, they might not even realize it's going on for them.
Well, I guess I misworded it. At what point do you think it's like a chronic problem? Like if it's like always more than 30 minutes or 45 minutes, it's hard to tell. Because I think like that, like it's two different animals. Because being 5 to 10 minutes late, that's just like can be part of life. That can be like you hit
consistent.
You hit like 4 stoplights.
I would
and then
say
had to go to the bathroom.
Chronic when it causes problems.
Yeah. Okay.
Whatever
like
though, and that's different for every relationship.
It's very
every
circumstantial.
Situation. It is very circumstantial. If you're an hour late to court,
that's going to be a big problem.
That could be a big problem, right?
Versus,
if you're hour late to the Catholic Mass that's 4 hours long, I don't know.
That's okay.
That might be better, right?
It's okay.
Good point.
It's absolutely. But here's the thing: is we want to be at choice when those things happen, and when we tell stories to ourselves. And I'm just going to use your example because I'm going to use your example because it's definitely gone through my head. I can't believe that person is disrespecting me. That's definitely what I felt with my first wife. And so we fought about it. Now, it could be true. It could be just she wanted to piss me off or she was disrespecting me.
Well, the thing is more that you feel that way. It's not that they were trying to.
Right. But now I see it for what it was. It's something within her, but deep that had nothing to do with me. And it caused her a lot.
How do you see it now?
The part that seems disrespectful is that she didn't just communicate and say, "Hey, it's gonna be an hour. Like, go get kill some time."
And they don't know.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That they have no idea.
How do you
Well,
know
they should
that?
try to communicate more. Then that's the number.
That's
one
Wait,
thing.
how do you know that they don't know?
Based on the research that I've read,
and
the people that I've talked to, and because I've been curious and leaned into this type of questioning, and my ex-wife and I have had conversation around this. That's the experience that they expressed to me, and I believe them. I take them at their word that
you trust it.
I do trust it because it was, we had the conversation years after the fact,
trust it,
right? And there's my ex has definitely had a lot of self-reflection and has definitely made huge improvements over when we were married. So have I.
Such as what?
Such as, I think she has become a lot more introspective. I think that she has had some things that have fundamentally shook her to the core, dealing with health issues for herself, health issues for loved ones. I think that kind of shook her out of it, and that she's slowed down, and that she has more patience. Absolutely. And that may come with age. It may just come with life experience. And it's wonderful. I mean, I'm glad that I have more patience, and I'm glad that she does. I'm glad that the people that I work with definitely have more patience because of the coaching and the things that we do. So I'm a big proponent of it.
Well, it's huge.
Yeah.
Because I think everything like love stems from patience.
Mm-hmm.
You can't love somebody and not be patient. What does anybody know that saying that's love is patient, love is kind? I'll look it up.
Yeah, I agree.
You know,
I think that the patience is the beginning of love, right? Because we have all these different emotions. We have different minds. We have our feeling mind. We have our thinking mind. We have our intuitive mind. We have energetic mind. There's, according to Dr. David Hawkins, we have 7 different minds. And I won't go into all of them because I don't even understand like the last 3, but I believe them that they exist. But this idea that this feeling mind is our animalistic nature, it's our reptilian brain.
Reptilian brain, I like that.
Right, our amygdala, all those tiny little pieces of our brain in the very center are so similar to reptiles that they call it the reptilian brain, and that's where all of our signals that go through our body, even our eyesight, our hearing, our touch feel, filter through that part of our body before it goes to our frontal lobe. So we feel things before we think them, right? And we have to be that way from a nature standpoint because we have to have reactions, and we're talking like 1/10,000th of a second we can react and
wow.
Well, it's 1/10,000th of a second that we take in the information, and it takes us 1/10,000th of a second to it's the difference between the how fast light travels. Anyway,
It's the medulla oblongata. It's like one of my favorite words from anatomy and that part of the brain. It's fun to say medulla oblongata.
Are you serious?
Medulla oblongata. Yeah,
It's
but
fun
that's
to
part
say.
of the reptilian brain, right? And it creates a lot of hormones.
It
creates a
controls the
lot
breathing
of,
and like reactions and stuff. Like
yeah, the parasympathetic nervous system, right? And that holds a lot of trauma. And so that's where a lot of people have these explosive reactions because it goes through their say it again.
Medulla oblongata.
Thank you. And
Medulla oblongata.
Medulla oblongata.
right, and then they have a reaction, and we call it having. There's no pause between the flash and the bang. It's just one event, and patience starts to add that pause. So when you get triggered, you goes through your reptilian brain. You tell yourself a story. Oh, that person is disrespecting me. Grr! How dare they?
And then remember the patients to remember that it's probably not intentional. It was just like a side effect of what happened, but it wasn't intentional.
Right. Now, here's the key. What most people will tell you, what most gurus will tell you is that the idea is to stop that kind of thinking. Stop thinking, oh, that person is bad or whatever that. I'm here to tell you, you're never going to be able to stop that thinking. You're not going to be able to stop it. What you can do is you can soften it. Right, you're still going to have that reaction because it's going through your feeling brain, and unless you're able to really deal with that emotionally from a deep level of therapy and that kind of thing, it's probably not going to go away. However, you can see it and you can recognize it, and then you can make it. You can go for your next reaction rather than be your first. That's a big key improv thing: is go with your second idea rather than your first, because your first is usually just a reaction to what's happening. Your second idea is probably the funniest one or the most fun. It's the same thing in life. If your initial reaction is being an asshole, all right, what's the opposite of that? Okay, do that. Like, and that was a big part of my coaching of do the opposite of what you normally would do. If you were angry at something, all right, how would you be happy about it? Well, that's weird, but I got into the habit, and all of a sudden, I had less of those angry thoughts. They're less intense. They're much easier to go, oh, I'm having a moment about Sherry being 15 minutes late, big whoop. And then I'm on to the next thing, right? So you still have to deal with those feelings. It's just much gentler, and you're able to just move them to the side rather than them becoming. But that's a process.
I love it. It's 100% patience. So, Gabe, are you patient with your girlfriend?
Yes, as much as possible, you know. Try my best.
He doesn't really have a mic right now. We should get him that mic so that they're able to hear him.
Can you bring your mic in? I have a couple questions for Gabe. Oh, there we go. Are you patient? Because I know you've got this nice relationship going on. Are you patient?
Yes, as much as possible, you know. I do everything I can.
Are there things that trigger you? Because there's definitely things that trigger me. Where it's like something that just gets your anger going real quick, where it almost blinds you.
Do you have any triggers?
And it's okay if you don't.
I can't think of anything.
That's good.
That's good. So you're patient. That means you don't get mad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not at her really.
Maybe at the situation. Or...
Yeah, I mean sometimes something happens and it's like I don't ever get mad at her, so it's
right.
Like,
it's more frustration with.
Yeah, just anything that's going on. I mean, life sucks sometimes, so it's
right.
Like, I mean, the situation could cause either of us to have a bad mood or something, but that doesn't make me upset at her,
right?
Ever. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah. That's very good.
Oh, that's really good. So she's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, she. Not to brag, but she tells me all the time I'm very patient with her. So.
Oh, does she?
Yeah. So
okay. Like, so that's a good question for Gabe.
I agree.
If you're, and I feel like you are patient.
Yeah, I try to.
What's the secret to that?
I just know everybody has to go through their own thing sometimes. So I mean, like you were saying, most of the time, if something's happening and you know the person likes you or cares about you, then it's not really a negative thing that they're doing to you. It's just like everybody has their moments.
Right.
You know, I have my moments. I'm late to things all the time, but it's not because I have any bad blood for anybody. I'm just bad at getting places on time sometimes.
Yeah, we get in our own way. It's very easy to do.
Maybe I'm tired that day or didn't get much sleep or whatever. It's usually what it is for me. But
right.
You know, everybody has their own things going on.
I like that approach. That you can look at somebody else and say they have something going on.
Well, right, and that's I think the curious nature that Gabe has, right, is that you're not making an assumption that they're XYZ. You're like, well, you're assuming, which in this case is a good assumption, is that, hey, they probably have some stuff going on. I'm going to cut them some slack. Now, if it happens over and over and over and over again, and it causes you high negativity, that's when, like what Chad was saying, that's when it deserves a discussion. And in coaching, we call it confrontation, but it's not like a confrontation as we think about what confrontation means. In the Latin, it just means con means with, and frontation means to bring it front. So bring something forward with someone. That's all that it means. And so usually it's about questions rather than statements. So if you notice that someone in front of you is struggling with whatever, rather than why are you doing that? How can you do this? It's, hey, what's happening for you right now? Are you okay? What can I do to help you? That's that's leaning into the curiosity. That's almost always going to get you a much better reaction. Not every single time.
I think every time.
Well, who knows? I'm not a believer of every single time, but maybe 99% of the time, right? There's always exceptions to the rules. Even the exceptions have exceptions. But it's leaning into that, and I didn't have that when I was your age. I didn't have that patience. I was very bold and very brash, and
Were you patient with your kids? I think we need to get one more mic hooked up.
I was absolutely patient with my kids. Most of the time, but I can remember several times where I just lost my cool. Remember one specifically where JJ was in the back crying, and I was yelling at him to stop crying, and then Emma started crying because I was yelling at JJ to stop crying, and I was just had a meltdown. I had to get out of the car. They're both crying. I pulled over, got out of the car, walked, took a couple steps.
How old were they?
Oh, they were little. They were 4 or 5 years old. And then I calmed down, I got back in, I apologized, we went and got ice cream, everything was fine, but I think that happens a lot to young parents, and even older parents, right? And it's hard to, if you're not getting enough sleep, if you're working too much, if you're not exercising, which I was doing none of those things at that time, I had what they call reduced capacity. And so if I would have been taking care of myself, I probably could have handled that situation and been fine.
But you were impatient because you were not taking care of yourself.
Exactly. And that goes back to the self-care that you and I were talking about earlier, is that I've noticed as I'm getting older that the better I take care of myself, the less I suffer physically. So I've really taken the next level of, if I want to be 60 in October and I want to be in the best shape of my life.
He's working on this.
What do I need to do? Well,
sorry.
I've noticed that I need to stop drinking. I was showing Kinga, I do these in-body scans, and I've been doing them since I've started really working out and being intensive about this in January. And there was a weekend where we went out with Kinga and we had a great time. We drank a lot of wine and we had a lot of food.
The drinks were flowing.
And Tuesday I took the test, and I had lost almost all of the previous 2 months' work.
Wow.
In that weekend and I still had, as far as my intracellular water retention and my weight, my fat was still down, but my weight popped up. And so and I'm just now, last week still was not at the levels yet that I was before we went out drinking. So I've said I'm not drinking until my 60th birthday. I'm going to work out or hike every day or almost every day. We're going to eat extremely healthy. And I've already seen the benefits of that. Now, if I was doing that when I had kids, I highly doubt I would have yelled at them ever, right?
Yeah.
But it's because I had reduced capacity, because I was, you know, I had too expensive of a mortgage. I had too expensive of a house payment. I was working too hard. I was working 2 or 3 jobs to cover everything. It just wasn't enough time in the day to do everything. And so I had that diminished capacity. Fortunately now I'm learning, and definitely this is what I teach the people that I coach, especially the parents, is number one, you got to take care of yourself. You got to take care of yourself, and then everybody else benefits.
It's like in the plane. You can't save somebody else until you save yourself first. So you can save them.
Absolutely, that's right. What do they say? Put your mask on before you put it on either children or people acting like children.
Well, because if you die, you can't help them.
Exactly. And same thing, if you're in a place of suffering, how can you help other people? One of the phrases that my coaches use is, you have to be greedy to be generous. And that phrase really stuck with me and really changed my perspective on my own health. And I've been getting healthier over the years. I've been in coaching for 10 or 11 years, but it wasn't until, again, this year where I'm like, you know what, I'm really going to get healthy and see what that's like. And so far, it's been great. I mean, there's been definitely some significant digestive issues that I've had that are starting to clear up that I didn't think would. And so I'm excited to see what that...
Would you say you're more patient or Sherry more patient?
Oh, I'm definitely way more patient than she
What?
is. Absolutely.
Really?
Yes. And she would say the same thing. She's way better than she was when we first met, and so am I. We've definitely been on this journey together. We talk about this kind of thing. Most couples, even the couples that are in this type of coaching, don't always talk about it to their spouse, because their spouse may or may not be on the journey. But she's definitely on the journey. She's definitely wants to be healthier. She wants to have more capacity. She doesn't want to get angry at things that are beyond her control. She wants to lean into curiosity, and just like the rest of us, we're all learning to do that. I'm in coaching because I need to teach what we call it, teach what we need to learn. So every time I explain it on the show, it helps me ingrain it and continue to learn it. And that's part of the sharing.
At what point do you think you should just like accept that somebody is like not gonna change? And like it kind of applies to being patient, because some people you kind of like want them to change in some way for the better, but after a certain amount of time of like trying to help them, it seems like they're not going to. Should you just accept that, and that's kind of like a form of patience that you're accepting that? Because like the person who came to mind is John Daly, the golfer. I just saw this video that came out where he says that when he's playing around in golf, he drinks 50 to 60 of those vodka seltzers when he's on the course, and then still has like cocktails when he goes back to the clubhouse.
Wow.
And you know what I mean? But it's like his kids aren't going to change him. That's just like who he is at this point. Right. So it's like, what point do you just like kind of throw the white flag and resign and accept that behavior? Or is that like something you shouldn't do? Is that quitting? It's like, it's kind of a tough question. But I saw that video of John Daly, and I was like, it's funny because he's a legend, but like part of you has to be like, I'm worried for his liver and his kidneys. He's drinking 60 drinks in a day.
60?
So
60 drinks.
This is an amazing question. It is a tough question, and these are questions that a similar question that I pose to my coaches, and what their thoughts on this were. And Dr. Marie especially, she's been a psychologist. She's had hundreds, if not thousands, of patients. And one of the first lessons that she taught me when I started in the coaching program not when I was being coached, but to be a coach, is that it's impossible to help people who do not want to be helped. And so that's important in coaching, because she does not waste her time with people who do not listen to her and do not.
The coach doesn't.
The coach does. Marie does not waste her time with those people.
That's the part that's the toughest part about John Daly, is he literally golfs better when he's drunk. Like he literally has like gone to the clubhouse to get cocktails like during PGA events, and then played better after that.
If that's his experience of life, then that's experience.
Yeah, it just seems like that's who he is.
Right.
So it's like,
but I don't think we should judge others.
Well, that's the thing is that we think that we can change people. We think that we can. We want people to be different. I see it as almost like being angry that a hurricane comes in, right? You want it to be different, but it's not, so you're angry. So you want somebody to be not. You can't change them. The only thing that can change them is them. And to be angry about that or to have a reaction around that is just suffering for you.
So having the acceptance that they're not going to change is like kind of a form of patience then.
Absolutely.
Like, just accept
and it's hard.
Yeah.
It is so hard to accept someone as they are. I have several people in my life where they frustrate me and I have a really difficult time accepting as who they are. And I also know that that's my lesson and that's why they're in my life. So I learn to understand what it is about them that's
for the
bugging
record,
me.
For the record, I think John Daly is awesome. I want him to live to be like 100 because he's so awesome.
Yes,
so
and the only
Drinking
thing that's
60 drinks on the course.
going to stop his drinking is either he dies of it or he has a moment. They call it some people call it the dark night of the soul, right? Where he has a moment where he realizes that his life is more important than that.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You can't do it. I can't show it to him.
So wait, but define that.
So, I'll just speak from my own experience. Before I went into coaching, I had my own dark night of the soul where I had, I thought I was having a heart attack. My life was not working out the way that I had thought. I was angry at a lot of people. I was angry at people that they weren't what I thought they were, and I was really pissed off about that. And I realized. And I was so unhappy.
But how long did this last? Like a year, 2 years, 3 years, 2 months,
no.
6 months?
The deep dark stuff was probably a month, maybe 2 or 3 months. But it was a lot building up to that. And then there was a moment in there where I was just like, I don't want to be this way anymore. This is just ridiculous. I don't want to feel this way. There's no reason that I'm feeling this awful about everything. And so that was the moment where I was like, it's time to change. And that's when I found the coaches, and that's when I went on the journey, and that's what happens. But most people have to have a moment like that to really get them to understand.
Hit rock bottom.
I think my ex-wife, I think that's what happened with her, and now she's on her own journey. I think it happens with a lot of people. I hope that's not what happens to John Daly. I hope just one day he wakes up and goes, you know what, I'm going to get healthy, and I'm going to golf better. I mean, I don't know, but it's just not usually the case.
Well, and so that's where it's tough, because we're talking about how, like, you just have to accept a person as they are.
Mm-hmm.
But with some things like drinking or cigarettes, like, it's not like an opinion that's unhealthy. It's just a scientific fact that it's unhealthy. But of course, like, sometimes you got to have those things in moderation. So I guess it's like kind of the lesson is just that if there's somebody around that's being that way, try to communicate with them that you want them to be healthy, but ultimately you have to accept what their behavior is going to be. Smoking
is a great example. Smoking is one of the most difficult things to give up, right? It's an amazing deep addiction, not only psychologically but physically.
Smoking cannabis or
smoking tobacco specifically.
Yeah, cigarettes.
Mm-hmm. So I've got several dear friends who smoke, and I've had people in my family pass away of cancer, from lung cancer. I also have people in my family that have smoked most of their lives, are in their 80s and 90s, and they smoke a pack or 2 packs a day and have their entire lives, and they're still going strong.
And that's why I brought up cigarettes and alcohol, because those are basically the two that are widely accepted that if you consume them daily, you're gonna have massive negative medical repercussions.
Right.
It's just a matter of time. It
is a matter of time, but it's also highly genetic. And I also believe...
But hold on, at the same point with those two thoughts, if you're somebody that's high stress...
You're
not patient.
You're jumping ahead, Ken.
Okay. It's just, it's maybe worse.
I do believe that there's a big difference, because the people that I know that are in their 80s and 90s and smoke, they go on the back patio and they smoke and they enjoy it. The people, and honestly, the people that I know who have died of lung cancer are the people who sit and smoke and are super stressed.
They're
and
worried
using it, and they're
negative
worried,
in
and
their
they're
mind
negative, right? And so I
angry.
really believe that there's part of it. I'm not saying go out and smoke cigarettes. I'm not at all. I'm just saying for the people who are, I believe that if you're stressed out about it and you beat yourself up about it and you feel like you're a piece of crap because you do it, that's causing far more damage than the cigarette. So if you're gonna have a cigarette, fucking enjoy it.
It's so true, because they've really done, the science supports that stress literally releases cortisol, which is like toxic to your whole body. So it's 100% accurate that if you're like sitting there stressing about something like that, you're not actually reaping any of the benefits.
So there's a
you're
study
totally
done,
accurate.
I believe, in the 60s or the 70s, and if anybody has this study or knows of this study, send it to the show.
Yeah,
But
send it to the show.
they had to move an entire village out of, I think, Austria or Germany, because the American troops were going to come through and fighting Germany in World War II and just going to decimate. So they literally moved that entire village someplace in the United States in the Midwest. And they built the town there, and that whole village, they all learned English and that kind of thing, but they were all stayed together. It was very unusual. And there was they started to notice that this particular town had significantly less heart disease, cancer, like all the traditional, like American type diseases, yet they ate sausage and
Yes.
milk and butter and smoked and drank and so they sent the researchers in
Everything.
and they took the blood samples and they checked the milk and there wasn't any differences, but the researchers noted that the people were abundantly happy, that when they walked by each other, they greeted each other, and everybody knew
With
each
a
other,
hug
and
and
everybody
love.
supported. And if someone was having trouble, the community came together, and that was the only thing that they could see that was really different than like a traditional American community where there's lots of backbiting and gossiping and things like that. That did not exist. These people were happy to be alive, happy to be with each other, support each other, and they all lived much longer and had
Because they're going to.
I think they're going to
dramatically
find
less.
so much scientific research to back up that point, that like the will to live and like happiness can affect your health so much. I think it's a huge difference. Like you hear about cancer cases all the time that got like turned around because they like started believing in different stuff. So it really shows that there is a connection there. They just haven't found a way to like quantify it or like measure it, but there 100% is some connection between your physical health and your like will to live and like enjoyment and happiness and mental health.
It's funny you say that. There's a lot of theoretical physicists right now talking about that very thing, because what they're finding is that our brains, animals' brains, aren't analog like we thought. They're not just chemicals and electricity. They're actually quantum level computers, that our brains, animals' brains, work on a quantum level. So we are connected to energy in a very different way than they ever thought before. And a lot of them, there's two Italian, Federico Fagan and Carlo Rovelli, are actually working on experiments to prove that our consciousness actually exists in the quantum realm, and we control our bodies kind of like they're drones, and that we are energetic beings. So we used to think that we were like a physical being and that we generate energy. What's becoming, what they're finding out, and they actually can measure this, is that our energy field extends way beyond our body. So we are all probably sitting in each other's energy fields. So that's us.
Are you in mine?
Yes, and you're in mine.
Are you in mine?
Well, yeah, our
Absolutely,
heart is
right?
our heart is
you
a
in
motor.
ours?
Our heart generates a little electric field around us. It's all because our heart is an actual pump. Like you think of like that pool
Well,
pump.
according to the theoretical physicists, it's every cell in our body is generating that field.
Interesting.
That and one of the not Rovelli, it's Federico. What he's talking about is that the reason he's been working on this is because he's kind of known as he's the father of the microchip, but he was one of the first people to work on AI. And when he decided to say, okay, how do I make a machine conscious? First of all, he had to define what consciousness was, and so he spent 30 years of being a physicist, yet delving into the idea of what's consciousness, how can we make it into AI or create a conscious being. And what he's come to is that we can't, because every cell in our body has a roadmap, has a map of our entire body in it, and computers don't have that. So every single cell, every skin cell, has all the genetic material and knowledge of our whole body.
It has to be.
Right. And so to have all that, it has to be at a quantum level. Like you hear these new, quantum computers that can, generate 50,000 times faster than a regular computer. That's what our whole body is. Each cell is like that. And so the amount of computing power that we have is incalculable. And because we're energetic beings and everything is in us is energy, we can change it because energy is matter. Matter is energy. Einstein talked about that, E equals MC squared. So we actually have the power to change our bodies.
And is it
using our
true
mind.
that if you have your mindset, I have my mindset, Chet has his mindset, Gabe has his mindset, but when we leave here and we hang out with somebody that's not, their mindset is very negative or kind of toxic, and you're listening to them talk about, and then whatever you say, they turn it to something negative. Does that, how do we absorb that?
Well, I would say you don't want to absorb that. I would say that you want to stay away from those people. However, if it's somebody in your family that you absolutely love and you can't do without, I would recommend giving them a book. It's called A Complaint-Free World. And it's a beautiful little book written by a preacher in Kansas. And he was noticing that the people in his congregation were starting to complain a lot and started a little backbiting, kind of what we were talking about earlier with the village that didn't have any of that.
Complaint-free world.
It's complaint-free world. So he gave everybody in the congregation one of those little rubber bracelets and said, every time that you notice yourself complain for the next week, I want you to just move the bracelet from one hand to another and just notice how many times during the week that you do it. So they all did that for a week, and they came back and they kind of talked about it, and people were surprised how much they actually complained once they actually started to notice it, and they actually had a physical thing that every single time that they complained about something, they moved the bracelet. And so then they had a conversation about it, and then they made a pact with each other. It's like, well, let's see if we can go 21 days without moving the bracelet. And it's the story of how this congregation, it took them many, many years to actually go 21 days without, so several of them, without complaining for 21 days, but it really brought it to their attention and really changed their mindset. And the idea in the book is if you can save one complaint every day, at the end of the year, that's 365 complaints that weren't uttered, that weren't manifested into the world. And so how can, I just thought it was a beautiful thing. So
it's so beautiful.
Sherry and I have listened to the book, and we've had the bracelets. It took me about 3 years before I went 21 days without saying.
3 years?
3 years, yeah.
Chet,
I took her about the same.
No, I think it's an interesting concept.
I was shocked how much I complained when we listened. It was one of the times we were driving to Geyserville, and we listened to it the whole way, and we were just fascinated. So I think we went out when we got there and went to a used clothing store and bought a couple of bracelets that we could use. And I think mine broke within like a week. I used it so many times.
I love it.
So I was really surprised because I thought if you would have asked me before we read the book, I would have said, oh, I'm a very positive person. I hardly ever complain. And then after I read the book, and they have a very specific definition of complaint, which I really like.
Which is what?
I'm going to let you read that.
So I have like a super,
like it.
I don't know, I have an observational brain, and if you observe something that you objectively, like, you know what I mean, if you see a car accident or something, there's no way to try to like make it that a good thing, but my brain always tries to spin it in like at least it wasn't worse type of way, like at least all those people are okay. So like I don't know, I try to basically just always, if I have come into contact with a negative thought or something negative that happens, I always just try to put like a positive spin on it and be like, oh, well, at least I still have this going for me, or at least this didn't happen that was worse about it. So I kind of just always try to put a positive spin on negative thoughts.
I love that. That's a beautiful habit, but it's a habit, and it's one that you should continue to cultivate. And here's another, the next step of that is that if we can look that everything in life, no matter what happens, is being done for us, it's not being done to us, you'll have a much different reaction. For example, car accident. Had a car accident with a young woman a long time ago when I taking the kids to school. She didn't see me, T-boned me at about 5 miles an hour. She's crying, she's freaking out, thinks her husband's gonna kill her, think I'm gonna get out mad. I get out, are you okay? Everything's fine, take a deep breath, very kind. we pulled back in. Her husband came. At the very end, her husband just came and he goes, I just want to thank you. My wife has a lot of anxiety, and you were just so graceful and handled her with such kindness. I just can't tell you how much that means to us. I could have been a jerk, and probably would have been 10 years prior, right? I can't go, what are you not looking, right? But I was able to have that grace. Now, the positive ripples of that day are probably still continuing because she didn't have that traumatic experience because I wasn't a dick, right? And so it's that kind of, that was done for both of us. I now had the opportunity to be kind, and she now had the opportunity to receive that kindness.
So
and there was a car accident.
So good things can come out of bad things.
Good things always come out of bad things.
Yeah, I guess my point though is that you shouldn't feel shame at like having a thought that kind of seems like a complaint. Like I went to this.
Thinking is you're never gonna stop the thinking.
Yeah,
you're not gonna stop the thinking,
and you're not gonna stop the random things that cause those frustrated thoughts.
Right.
Like I went to a food
but it's
place.
inflicting them on everybody else.
No, but
I went to a food place recently.
A habit.
Right.
No, like I went to a food place recently where like you have to get the sauce. It's a chicken place. So like without the sauce, it's like you just bought a bunch of fucking dry chicken. And so I like got like 4 of the sauces. It's probably like $5 worth of sauce or something. And I get back to my place and she forgot all of it. And so at first I was like so pissed off. I cursed and and then I was like, okay, obviously it's just an accident. Like I'm lucky that I have food all right now. Like I just like went back to like trying to get back on the positive thoughts.
That is the key, right?
It's so hard to not at least have that reaction though. If something like that happens, it's out of your control. So it's like if you were doing that bracelet book, like that technically is a complaint, but it's a valid one. So it's like sometimes. Well, there are things that happen that kind of...
That's true, but what they talk about is it's not that you don't deal with it. You don't complain about it. You approach it with solutions.
You move on with positive.
Solutions.
Right, yeah.
So, yes, it's not great that girl forgot the thing. So now you have to go back and you got to say, hey man, you forgot the thing.
Well, I just ate it without it. I just had to eat it dry, but
if you wanted to address it, right? Yeah. To confront it, you could have gone back and been a dick. Or you could have come back and said, hey, I know it's probably, I don't want to get you in trouble, but this would happen, right? And that person now has had a positive reaction. But it's the idea of now you're still continuing to train your brain. And as you continue to have that habit of having the negative reaction and then turning into a positive, what's going to happen? And this has been my experiences. As I've continued to train my brain over the last 10, 14 years, I still have those thoughts. They're much gentler. They're not as loud in my head, and it's very easy to go up and move it to the side.
You pay attention.
Well, it's because I practice paying attention, but it's also I had to retrain the neural pathways in my brain because those are neural pathways in your brain, and we know that neural pathways are.
You build habits.
Right, but we know that we can change them, and we can change them at any point in the cycle. At any time. And we can hack it. And every time you hack it, like what you're doing, you're reducing the intensity of your next reaction. And then reducing the next reaction of your next reaction, and so on and so on. And as you, hopefully by the time you're my age, because you're starting it a hell of a lot earlier than I did, you'll be at a much more advanced place, right? Than you are even now. That you still may have that reaction, but it'd be like, God damn it. Okay.
Yeah, and like the bigger, the more frustrating the thing is, obviously, the harder it's going to be to come back to a positive mindset. Like, obviously, missing the sauce, that's not a big deal at all compared to somebody who just found out their parent has cancer or something like that. There's like such massive scales to that. But when there's something massive like that going on, like losing a loved one or like an emergency where you're really hurt or something like that, you can still always go back to a positive mindset with just being grateful for existence in the first place, and that's where my true. I'm right in the middle of finishing a point.
Okay, hurry.
Yeah, because our existence from conception of like we have to fight all the other sperm off is like 1 in billions, and then the odds of existing on a planet that can support life is like 1 in billions. So the odds of existence is like 1 in trillions. So I always just go back to thinking about that when even if I'm having that worst day, like when I really hurt my leg and broke my leg, I still just like, I'm like, damn, I'm still so happy to be able to exist at all and like have another day in this universe.
And your leg
all.
wasn't amputated.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
There's always
Well, I
still
think-
something positive you can spin on it.
I think you've even said that we're just on a big rock hurtling through space at millions of miles an hour.
Yeah.
Right? Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for being patient.
Okay, thank you.
See, good things happen to
Yeah.
those who wait. All right, go ahead. Knock us out.
So I love this Christy Brinkley. Christy
Mhm.
Brinkley was this, big model,
Supermodel. Yes.
and she's written a book called Uptown Girl.
Because she's married to
And-
Billy Joel.
Let's
Yes.
say nowadays you can't just
Yes.
say big model, because now they'll say you're
Supermodel.
saying a fat model.
Yeah, you're right, supermodel.
Now those exist.
She's a gorgeous supermodel.
PHAT.
A thin model.
And she was the swimsuit. What's that magazine?
Oh, Sports Illustrated.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she was like one of the first supermodels, I think.
But and she said she was one of the first supermodels that was actually voluptuous. She wasn't like
Oh,
real
Twiggy.
skinny.
Yeah, real skinny.
Yeah,
that's
she was the
true.
first one, and she was
Mhm.
surprised that they wanted her. But anyway, she wrote this book called Uptown Girl, and she said that the book is about how she overcame challenges,
Mhm.
like some of the worst times. So she said, so the guy that was interviewing her said, she said, all these terrible things happened in my life. And he goes, what were these terrible things? And she said, my divorces, because I think she was divorced like 4 times.
Mhm.
And she was saying, but the best things came out of the worst times. And every time she got a divorce and something terrible was happening in her life and she thought it was the end, the best thing came again.
Mhm.
And she said how wonderful it is. I loved her approach. She said it's so wonderful to be in love.
Mhm.
And she said she was so lucky. And some people would be like, oh, that's terrible. Your relationship didn't work out or your marriage didn't work out. But she was like, no, I was in love so many times.
Mhm.
And being in love is the best thing in your life.
Right. And so that
Yes.
was being done for her, not to her, right?
Exactly.
It's how you approach it.
is totally.
You can experience it either way.
Yeah.
It's a choice, but
Yeah.
it's difficult to train your brain to continue to make that choice because you have to make that choice every day. At least I do.
Well, and so I want to read that book, and I advise, or I'm not going to say go out and read it because I haven't read it yet, but it just was super positive. Her approach was to look at how these divorces, the worst thing in her life, came to the best thing in her life. And so
Absolutely.
a lot of times when there's something really bad happening,
Mhm.
it's going to lead to something that's the best thing that's going to happen to you. And I loved her attitude.
I think it's
I
fantastic
just love her
when
attitude.
people like that share their experience because
Yeah.
I think it's important. It's a way for all of us to learn, right? She's sharing her experience that bad things happened, and she had very positive reactions. Back when I was going through my divorce,
Yeah.
I thought it
Didn't you think it was the end of the
I
world?
thought it was the end
I
of the
did
world.
too.
I thought a
I did
failure.
too.
I felt like
I just was like, oh, there's
dog
nothing's
doo-doo,
going to be
right?
great again.
And I
the
could
best
have,
thing in my life.
gone through it thinking that it was the best thing for me and had a blast, right? And so I chose the former, and it wasn't fun.
I feel like it'd be really frustrating because it's a self-inflicted thing.
Oh, it
technically.
is.
But like, yeah, if you break it down to like, compared to like somebody who went through a tragedy that wasn't self-inflicted, like somebody who was just hit by a drunk driver or something,
Right.
that would immediately refresh your perspective to going, I'm gonna get through this. Like,
Well, it's different though when you're going through a divorce and you have kids and someone's trying to take your kids away or, different things like that. But bottom line is this book sounds exciting.
Yes.
And I loved her attitude that she says the worst things in her life led to the best things in her life.
Yes.
And I love for you to have that mindset in your mind.
Mhm.
And we only have about a minute left, so how do we want to close this chat? And Martin.
Good question. I've really enjoyed today's conversation.
I know.
Last words of wisdom for folks, Chet.
I would say just try to work instead of being impatient. The next time you're starting to have those impatient thoughts, try to remember why you like that person you're going to do something with and why you love them and why they're worth waiting for.
All right.
It's a mental
I love that.
exercise because then you'll go, wait, oh yeah, this person, they're like my best friend. Why am I mad that they're 10 minutes late or something like that? So it might work.
I'm going to
Awesome.
say count your blessings.
Nice. Excellent.
Life is a gift. Count your blessings.
Gabe, what do you got? Get
Yeah,
some final
give us
parting
a final.
wisdom.
Yes.
Just try to be understanding and compassionate.
I love that.
Alright, yeah.
That's so
And
good. So good.
My advice is to get a coach. Find somebody to help you, because I couldn't do it alone. I thought I could,
Love
but
that.
I was in my mid 40s before I figured it out and got somebody to help me. And if you're struggling, find somebody to help you.
So work on self-improvement, because none of us are perfect.
Nobody.
And we all have ways that we can improve in. And focus on that.
We can help each other.
Yes.
That's the thing. Don't do it by yourself.
Save the planet.
One
show
show
at
at
a
a time. Good time.